Today we're going to explore a brand new archaeological site. It's just opened up and it gives us insight into a famous monument, the Porticus Minucia. Let's explore. So here we have another hidden history, a monument that you walk by, you don't even recognize what it is. It's columns with a podium, probably the Temple of the Nymphs, that was surrounded by the Porticus Minucia, a place of grain distribution right here, just down the street of Largo Argentina. And the tram goes by, history goes by. Now I'm going to explore a new archaeological site that is part of the Porticus Minucia. We're in what is the new Radisson Collection Hotel, and the excavation was financed by Finint Investments, working hand in hand with the Special Superintendency of Rome. So this is a great example of public-private partnership to reveal something new. So we see here a series of images of the Porticus Minucia and the temple that over time in the Middle Ages here in the 5th century, into the 10th century, and ultimately into the 13th century, this archaeological site has disappeared. And of course we have urban renewal today that's allowing us to peer underneath new modern buildings as they are renovated. And this is the archaeological site that is now going to be open to the public. Let's now dig into this new archaeological site. And what we see here are a series of phases. And the real standout feature when we peer inside is a series of large blocks. And those large blocks were originally part of the outer wall of the Porticus Minucia. And we can see even here the holes for the iron clamps joining one block to the other. So those blocks are in place, and what's in front of them? Marble veneer. So we actually had something that was beautifully decorated, and the base consisted of big panels of marble. But ultimately, the outer wall is all but removed to be recycled in the Middle Ages. But what was butting up against it on the other side was another structure with herringbone brick, and behind that an even later structure, and we can actually see that its pavement is made with pieces of marble. So we're able then to get an understanding of the heavy urbanization of imperial Rome. But of course, what we're looking at is something that's been heavily robbed. You don't rob out that herringbone brick pavement so we can admire it, we can understand it, but we really have just an imprint of the glory that was once the Porticus Minucia. But luckily, within this context, within this archaeological site, we can also look at reconstructions that help us visualize better the entire circumstances. So here we are in the Campus Martius area. We're just down the street from Largo Argentina, and we're along the Via delle Botteghe Scure. To the right would have been the Theater of Balbus, the Crypto Balbi Museum of Museo Nazionale Romano, but across the street is that new hotel of the Radisson. They're sitting right on top of the Porticus Minucia. So with restoration, with modernization of buildings, you get an opportunity to explore, and you get the financing that allows us to learn more about ancient Rome. So here's a reconstruction of that outer wall with those huge blocks. Where do they all go? They were recycled in medieval Rome. They were recycled in Renaissance Rome. This is an idea of the decoration on the upper portion of those walls. And again, this Porticus Minucia was rebuilt after the fire of AD 80. So it would have been something spectacular. And again, it's a place where you're going to have grain distribution to the citizens of Rome. It had to be large, it had to be covered, and it had to be able to accommodate a lot of Romans who were coming here monthly to get their distribution of grain, the cura annoni. So this space was in use until the 3rd century. Then it's not the place of grain distribution anymore, because under Septimius Severus, they start to distribute bread elsewhere in the city. And here we have the same archaeological site that we're investigating that appears on the former Urbis. You can go check out the fragments of the former Urbis in the newly opened former Urbis Museum, and we have a number of videos on that museum. You should check it out. We always want to contextualize ourselves in the Campus Martius, in the floodplain of Rome. We can see where the hotel is. We can understand a bit of this history of the city of Rome. It's a place that's continually renewed throughout the Republican and Imperial periods. You have the temple that's first constructed in about 190 BC, and by about 110 BC, it's surrounded by a portico. All of it has to be reconstructed after the Great Fire of 80 AD. And now we get another piece of that history. We can experience it when we come and visit this hotel. So you can be a guest in the hotel, or you can be a tourist in Rome and you can visit underneath this hotel to get a better insight into the urban fabric of the Campus Martius. So from the hotel, we can peer down and get a view of the Temple of the Nymphs, or the Temple of the Lares Permarini. Across the street from the Cryptobalbi Museum, the Porticus of Bulbus, there was the Porticus Minucia, which had at its central piazza space a temple. This has been identified then as the Temple of the Nymphs, which you have rebuilt by Domitian after a fire, the fire of 80 AD. And you have these columns revealed as they are revealed in Largo Argentina in the fascist era. So you have destruction of later buildings built around it, built incorporating these columns. And now you have that liberation in the fascist era, and you have these columns kind of floating in the neighborhood by itself, but it's all part of a large complex, part of which you can experience over across the way in Cryptobalbi Museum, because you have the remains of the foundation wall of the Porticus Minucia. So besides going underneath the Radisson Hotel, besides going underneath the Cryptobalbi Museum, we can come here further west to Largo Argentina. We can descend into this new archaeological site. It's got 4 temples, temples A, B, C, and D. And we can also explore a little museum space. But look at those big brick piers that were covered over with stucco. They are the remains of the western portico of the Porticus Minucia. So it's like a mystery game. It's like an archaeological puzzle. We can explore the different fragments of this once large, prestigious portico in the heart of the Campus Martius, all rebuilt after the fire of 80 AD. All right, so what you can see here is this fantastic slice of wall, pavement, and foundations from the Porticus Minucia. This is truly a great example of private-public partnership. You have a fantastic video that's going to reconstruct the site for you and take you back in time, and also fix you in contemporary Rome and the relationship between the walls, the monuments, and the history. It really is a great experience. It's wonderful to have this in the basement of your hotel when you visit. Thanks for joining me in the Campus Martius. Thanks for joining me in the heart of ancient Rome. And you can travel with me, just reach out. You can take a course with me. Go over to ancientromelive.org/courses. And I'll see you in Rome and throughout the empire.